Do you disagree entirely? 0344 499 1000. Get in touch. Let me know. We're going to be taking your calls a little bit later. I've had so many calls on this. I do see your messages. I will be reading out some more of them later. And as I said, we'll be taking your calls a little bit later as well. Let's move on to a current MP. Haven't looked at how much they've been making on the side, but our current MP and Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, he was speaking yesterday at Bloomberg and describing it, you could say he was trying to be optimistic, bigging up what could be on the horizon. Did that as well as saying there won't be any tax cuts, or at least hinting there won't be any tax cuts in the next budget. But what he wants to do, what he's looking at, is getting tax cuts in another way, as in bringing down inflation. He also spoke about how much support he's going to give for businesses and his main focus as Chancellor in the coming years. Well, let's get more on that, shall we? Let's speak to Roger Seawolb. He joins me now. He's CEO of Fair Money, personal finance, and also credit expert. Really good to have you with us again.
Thank you, Claudia.
First of all, your reaction to this was a big speech coming from our current Chancellor. Hasn't been in the job for too long, but you get a really good sense of what he's going to be doing as Chancellor. And when it comes to everyday people directly, there's not going to be much support by way of tax cuts.
Well, with respect, maybe you got a good idea of what he's going to do, but I didn't. I mean, I'm on the side of the Financial Times, which called this speech, quote, empty, unquote. I think it was just more waffle. Somebody asked me the other day about the term gaslighting, which we're hearing an awful lot of today. And she said, you know, actually, I keep nodding my head, but I don't really know what it means. What is it, Roger?
Okay, go ahead. You give me your definition. I see people use it all the time, and it frustrates me because they don't use it in the right
I'm not
context.
sure people know what it means.
No.
So, first of all, it comes from a very old movie from the 40s, 30s,
yeah, indeed,
called Gaslight. And what it is where someone manipulates you to make you deny your own reality. In other words, somebody tries to get you to question what's in front of your face, what you know. A good example, two sisters, two little girls. One of them tells the other she's hearing voices when her sister says Mommy and Daddy are talking in the next room. It's trying to tell you that what you know is not the case. It's a way of manipulating and disequilibrize, if that's a word, removing the equilibrium from somebody and confusing them.
So you're lying to somebody, you know the truth, that person you're lying to believes they know the truth.
Boom.
However, you're manipulating them to think it's actually in your own mind. You're making them believe that they may be crazy.
Do it first, so then you can slip in what it is that you're selling, and they won't be able to tell the difference. That's gaslighting. Now, we talk about the gas crisis that's going on. One of the reasons there's no gas is because all of the politicians and all the parties are taking and using so much of it to gaslight us at the moment. There's never been anything like this before.
How is Jeremy Hunt gaslighting?
Well, let me start with Rishi first.
Okay, yes,
There's two, I mean, you're spot on. There's two great gaslights today which have got to win the Olympics prize. The first one is Rishi's, the second is Jezza's. All right, now Rishi, we have got a Chancellor of the Exchequer, Nadim Zahawi, who failed to include some 27 million pounds of capital gain, of income, whatever, in his tax return. It is said that he, quote, carelessly forgot, unquote, that it was a, quote, innocent act, unquote. And he now discloses, which he didn't before when pushed, that he paid a fine, a penalty of almost 5 million pounds to HMRC. Yesterday, CL, the head of when have you ever seen the tax authorities do this before? The head of HMRC came out and said, wait a minute, you're impugning us. You're giving us a bad name. We do not tax people with penalties for innocent mistakes. This was not an innocent mistake. Where did you ever hear a government office say that?
I gotta say, Roger, that Nadim Zahawi, of course, denies any wrongdoing. There is an investigation going on where we can find out exactly what happened, but this is just people's understandings of what happened at that time.
But we're being gaslighted because here we have seen a train, a 27-car train, carrying the UK economy go off the rails, and Rishi says to us, what, you're concerned? I'll have a ministerial investigation about impropriety. I mean, he's actually questioning whether there was impropriety here to make us believe that there might not have been when, you know, the whole thing has blown up. It's just ridiculous. Jeremy Hunt's gaslighting is embodied certainly in his speech yesterday, where he's telling us how rosy everything is, where the whole damn thing's actually falling apart. The NHS, I mean, what doctors tell me is unbelievable. Strikes, the post office, inflation, etc. But the greatest gaslight of all, and you've fallen for it too, because you just said it,
No.
is how in the world is keeping taxes high when we are already the highest tax country in all of Europe and UK, where we have the highest taxes in 70 years, where they've just been increased by about 10 different stealth taxes in his November budget. How does that get inflation down? They have nothing to do with each other. How do you cripple people with more tax when they're already dying from inflation? Did these guys do any economics courses?
So just to say, I didn't fall for anything, but I was quoting what Jeremy Hunt said.
Sorry.
But you say, no, it's cool. I just want to say, they're gonna need to do more to pull one over my eyes, is what I'm just trying to say. But I have to also say that, and you could actually confirm this or not, the signs are that inflation's already started coming down, and the signs are it could go down to around 7% later this year. And I think that's what Jeremy Hunt is basically standing on, which is, and this is again a promise that he's going to try and bring inflation down. And when that happens, that means there's going to be less money that we're going to be spending, which in turn could also work as a tax cut.
Except that he and Rishi have nothing whatsoever to do with it. No, this is cost-push inflation.
No, they don't. I guess fuel's coming down.
It's
and
by
then the
itself.
Of the war is going
United
to
States, Canada, France, Israel, Germany, and a number of other countries. The same thing inflation is going to have because it's cost push. It's not consumer driven.
Fair enough,
you don't find a single prime minister or finance minister in those countries claiming that they're bringing it down.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So in terms of then, you couldn't see anything, not just you, journalists at the Times couldn't see anything of real substance from Jeremy Hunt when it comes to everyday people, when it comes to people and taxes. What about businesses, though? They seem to, the only area, it seems, the Chancellor said there will be some form of cuts would be for businesses. Was that more optimistic?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, like everything else, when he said also that the benefits of Brexit are going to help us, well, wonderful. But I mean, I didn't hear one specific thing. It's like listening to Labour, who every day, because they're just as bad. I mean, Keir Starmer says, put us in, we'll do a better job. But look at the local councils. Look what they're doing. I mean, the greatest one last week is the council that asked the residents of the street, do you want to change the name? 80% said no. They went ahead and changed it. Sadiq Khan does this consultation on the ULEZ zone, and overwhelmingly people say it doesn't work. Get rid of it. And he just carries it on. I mean, they're not listening any differently. So I'd like to hear some specifics from Jezza about what he's going to do. For me, it was all truth, beauty, and justice. Promises, but with no substance.
You're making a really good point, particularly on his comments on Brexit, which was very interesting because many people know Jeremy Hunt did actually vote to remain. But it's a very... surely it's a positive sign that as a Remainer, coming on board and actually recognising or trying to at least find opportunities because of Brexit. But you're also right, when it comes to Labour, we're hearing very little from Sir Keir Starmer on what the opportunities could be when it comes to Brexit. And you could maybe argue that he's trying to stay away from even talking about Brexit, given that it didn't go well for him last time that he did that.
He's just being strategic, CL. The Tories are working so hard to get feet into the mouth that all he has to do is sit back and take a shot now and then. He doesn't have to risk.
Is he playing it too safe, though?
Is he?
Yeah,
I think so.
Right now, they should be the party in waiting.
Okay.
Right, it should be easily a landslide. But however, interestingly enough, William Hague, Rishi Sunak took cabinet ministers to Chequers on a retreat.
Yeah.
William Hague, former Tory leader, he went there and said, actually, we could do what we did when John Major was leader. It was a very surprise. If you remember, I remember our kids in the gallery might not remember, but yes, when John Major won, that was a very surprise win for the Tory party, beating Labour, Neil Kinnock. Yeah. He's saying they could do it again because maybe Keir's not speaking up enough. I
agree with you 100%. I think he's being diffident. I think he's being shy. It's a great strategy. You're absolutely right. It's a great strategy to offer nothing because then you don't risk getting shot down. Just say, this is wrong, they did that wrong. But you're right. I think it's come to the time where he's long past the point where he should have said, and if it was me, I would do this. Now, he actually should be doing something like that every day and gain more traction.
Looking a little bit ahead in terms of cost of living, are the signs and inflation, is that accurate? Do you think we could come down by 7%?
All over the world, cost push inflation is driven by price increases in materials and services, and that's exacerbated by the Ukraine war, by Putin. It's not to do with consumer demand. Claudia-Liza didn't go out and buy another Prada handbag, and this has to stop. So let's make money cost more. We're cutting back. People, millions of people, I talk to them, are actually choosing between heating and eating. So this is not consumer-driven inflation, which is called demand pull instead of cost. But cost push inflation always runs itself out. Another great, the king of gaslighters, Andrew Bailey of the Bank of England and his cohorts, have raised the interest rate on us 9 times in the last 13, 14 months. It was unnecessary. It didn't reduce inflation. It didn't protect the dollar. And it just crippled British businesses and the British public. Other people in the Bank of England, in 2009, when it was a similar situation, cost push, between 2009 and 2012, they left the interest rate at 0.5%. They didn't touch it because they knew cost push would run itself out. That's what's happening now. As you just said, you're absolutely right. That's what's happening. It will be 7%. It's got nothing to do with Rishi, Shmishi, or Pishy, okay, or Jezza or Wezza. It's got nothing to do with anybody.
So, but this is good news, though.
Yeah.
This is good news. It's going to be good news in terms of the cost of living crisis. Do you think we could be turning a corner then this year?
Absolutely.
Thank goodness.
Absolutely. And Jeremy's enthusiasm, which is most welcome, is great, but it's about as unsubstantiated as Apocalypse Now and Comic Quasi's mini budget. Was great talk, but nothing underneath it to support it.
What should the Chancellor be doing? He's going to be preparing for that next budget, and he said there was no substance. What kind of substance do we need to hear?
I just think the amount of gaslighting, and this doesn't just apply to Jeremy, we have got historically record-beating gaslighting going on by politicians everywhere. And in this country on all sides.
It's not a new thing, though.
No, but it's worse than it's ever been before. To try to sell us, as he did, a 55 billion pound black hole, and then say 25 billion of this is going to be filled by tax increases, and 30 billion by cuts in public services, police, education, national health, etc., then introduce the tax changes, and then turn around 24 hours later, say, you know what? We don't need that 30 billion right now. Let's defer it for a few years, which says there was no black hole. It's gaslighting. The gaslighting has to stop.
Well, it did increase, actually. We've got news on government's debt, or indeed the country's debt, deepening. How do you feel? I mean, I'm asking people about MP second jobs. You've got details of how much exactly some of our MPs have been earning on top of their salary of £84,000 as MPs. What do you think? Do you think it's right for MPs to have second jobs?
I think you said it all. I think you're not going to attract the kind of talent that can earn hundreds of thousands of pounds and bonuses and shares in companies and end up multimillionaires to do this rather thankless and difficult job where they're probably going to be pressured by the whip to gaslight, even though they're not gaslighters themselves, to gaslight their public. You're not going to get them if you don't let them do something else. So
you think second job's fine?
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I'm a celebrity.
Could I care if somebody wants to go eat maggots? Fine, go enjoy yourself, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, no,
very
as
interesting.
long as it doesn't conflict with their duties to the public. Now, whether
no Owen Pattinson type things.
Yeah, and whether Matt should have been gone when that crucial vote was. I mean, you know, come on, exercise a little bit of judgment, guys. But in general, I would say I don't have a problem with it. And I think it also probably builds the. You know, most politicians have never worked a day in their life in business in the real world. Okay, and they talk about links with business. Actually, letting somebody have a job in business in the real world and be a politician is probably a good thing and builds a link for them. So, yeah, I would be generally for it.
Okay. All right. Well, Roger Girob, always good talking to you. Thank you so much for going over Jeremy Hunt's speech yesterday and indeed what you think on second jobs for MPs. But also, I've been asking you that question. How do you feel? Roger here's given one of the reasons why it is allowed for MPs to have those second jobs. It's the only way they can make decent money. They could get better jobs, far more lucrative jobs elsewhere. So this is a way to get the best people for those roles. Do you agree? 0344 499 1000. Tweet me at Claudia-Liza TV. You can also tweet at Talk TV. You're Claudia-Liza. I'm Claudia-Liza. You're watching.